My name is Joyce Moore, and people say having a twin is a blessing. For me, it was a curse I never asked for. Clara, my identical sister, looked exactly like me, same eyes, same hair, same smile. No one could tell us apart, not even our parents. But inside, we were nothing alike. I was quiet, careful, and I dreamed of love. She was loud, selfish, and wanted everything I had. When I met Daniel, my fiancé, I thought I had finally escaped her shadow. He loved me for who I was, not the image Clara copied. I trusted him with everything, even the secret mark I placed near my belly button so he'd always know the truth. But as my wedding day grew closer, Clara's jealousy grew sharper. She smiled in public, hugged me like a sister should, but her eyes carried fire. I didn't know then, but she had already begun planning my betrayal. I thought the worst thing that could happen before a wedding was rain or cold feet. I was wrong. A week before the ceremony, Clara made her move, one that would almost cost me everything. And that's where my nightmare began. Before I tell you how I got my revenge, hit that like button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The week before my wedding was supposed to be filled with laughter, flowers, and endless dress fittings. Instead, I started to feel Clara's shadow following me everywhere. She offered to help with everything, choosing the cake, fixing the seating plan, even visiting Daniel when I wasn't around. At first, I thought she wanted to support me. But every time she smiled, I felt something cold crawl inside my chest. Daniel noticed too. "Your sister is around a lot," he said one night. His brow furrowed, and he leaned closer to me. "Don't worry. I could never mistake her for you." Those words comforted me, but only for a moment. I had always known Clara could be cruel. She mocked my dreams, stole my clothes, even dated boys just to prove she could take them from me. But I never imagined she'd dare to cross the one person I truly loved. At dinner that night, Clara raised her glass and toasted, "To love that lasts forever." Her eyes locked on Daniel's, and for a brief second, it felt like she wasn't celebrating me, she was claiming him. And deep inside, I felt the first warning of a storm. 3 days before my wedding rehearsal, I walked into the hall earlier than expected. The lights were low, and voices echoed softly near the back. I froze when I heard Clara's laugh, sharp, secretive, and wrong. "Don't worry," she whispered to someone. "She won't be a problem. By the time Daniel walks to the altar, he'll see me instead." My heart thudded so loudly I thought they would hear me. I pressed my back against the wall, trying to steady my breath. The man with her chuckled, a deep and rough sound. "You sure he won't notice? Identical twins aren't perfect copies." Clara scoffed. "He won't tell the difference. He never has." Her words cut me like knives. Daniel had always sworn he could see me, know me, even in the dark. But doubt slid into my chest like poison. What if she was right? I stumbled back, desperate not to be caught. My hands shook as I left the hall, questions tearing me apart. Who was that man with her? Why was she planning to take my place? I thought I still had time to stop her. But Clara's betrayal had already gone too far. Enjoy our revenge stories? Subscribe, like and drop your location in the comments. The night before my final dress fitting, Clara appeared at my door with a smile too wide to trust. "Joyce," she said sweetly, "come with me. I've planned a surprise before your big day." Something in her tone felt off, but she was my twin. Against my better judgment, I followed. She led me into a black car waiting outside. 2 men sat in the front, silent and tense. My skin prickled. "Clara, where are we going?" I asked, forcing calm into my voice. She only smirked. "You'll see." The doors locked, and my stomach dropped. The car sped away from the city lights, heading toward the dark edge of town. My pulse hammered. "Clara, stop this." I shouted, but she only leaned close, her whisper slicing through me, "You've had everything. The love. The attention. Now it's my turn. One of the men chuckled cruelly. Don't worry, sweetheart. It'll all be over soon. I clawed at the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. Panic surged, mixing with rage. She wasn't just jealous anymore, she was ready to erase me completely. And for the first time, I realized my sister didn't just want my life. She wanted me gone. The car slowed and stopped in the middle of nowhere. My heart raced as the doors opened, revealing an abandoned warehouse. The men grabbed me roughly, and I stumbled inside, my heels scraping against the concrete floor. Enjoy our revenge stories? Subscribe, like and drop your location in the comments. Clara's laugh echoed behind me. Perfect, she said. Now you can rest while I take everything that's mine. I sank to the floor, trying to stay calm. Panic screamed in my ears, but I forced myself to think. Daniel would notice I was missing. Someone would come looking. I just had to survive until then. The men ignored her warning to keep me quiet. They left the room, locking the door behind them. Darkness swallowed me, and the cold floor bit through my dress. Every instinct told me to scream, fight, and escape, but I needed a plan. I touched my belly, feeling the secret mark Daniel knew. That mark wasn't just a symbol of love, it was proof that Clara could never replace me. Even trapped, fear and anger mixed into determination. She had underestimated me. She thought she could steal my life, my fiancé, and my future. But she hadn't counted on Joyce Moore's will. And I would make sure she regretted every second of her betrayal. Enjoy our revenge stories? Subscribe, like and drop your location in the comments. Alone in the dark warehouse, I pressed my back against the cold wall and tried to steady my shaking hands. Panic had to be replaced with strategy. Clara had made a grave mistake, underestimating me. I wasn't just her twin, I was Joyce Moore, and I refused to be erased. I took stock of my surroundings. The room had one small window near the ceiling, bars across it, and a door that didn't budge. The men had left some supplies, a rope, a flashlight, and a box of tools. Everything I needed, I realized, was in front of me. I just had to be smart. I traced the secret mark on my belly with my finger. Daniel's eyes, his unwavering trust, gave me strength. He believed in me. That belief became a weapon, sharper than any blade. Hours passed as I tested the locks, studied the shadows, and prepared for the right moment. I whispered my plan into the silence: escape first, then make Clara regret her betrayal. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about reclaiming my life, my wedding, and my love. And when I emerged, Clara would see that trying to destroy me was the biggest mistake of her life. The warehouse was quiet except for the hum of the distant city lights. I waited for the men's footsteps to fade before moving. Every muscle in my body tensed as I crawled toward the door, testing its lock with the tools I had scavenged. Minutes felt like hours. My heart pounded, but I focused on one thought: I had to get out before Clara returned. She thought she had me trapped, but she had forgotten one thing: her identical twin had a mind of her own. I finally found a weak hinge on the door. Carefully, I worked it loose, listening for any sign of movement. Sweat dripped down my face, but I refused to panic. My escape depended on patience and precision. Just as I was about to pull the door open, I heard a soft click behind me. Clara's voice rang out, sweet and poisonous: "Going somewhere, Joyce?" I froze. She had returned earlier than I expected. My hands clenched into fists. "Don't think you can outsmart me," she said, stepping closer. I swallowed my fear. This was no longer just about running. It was time for my revenge to begin. Clara's eyes glinted with triumph as she stepped closer, but I refused to show fear. I straightened my back, forcing my voice steady. "You really think this will work?" I asked. She laughed. "You've always been weak, Joyce. Daniel will never know the difference. Soon, it'll be me walking down the aisle." I let her words sink in, then smiled coldly. "You forgot one thing: I whispered, sliding the flashlight toward my side. I'm not just the quiet twin anymore. In a sudden move, I struck the hinge I had loosened earlier. The door creaked open just enough for me to slip through. Clara's shocked gasp froze her for a fraction of a second. That was all I needed. I darted toward the exit, my heart hammering, my mind sharp. Outside, the night air hit me like freedom itself. Clara shouted behind me, furious, but I didn't look back. I had escaped her trap, but this was only the beginning. Her betrayal wasn't going unnoticed. Daniel didn't just deserve the truth, Clara deserved a reckoning. And I was about to make sure she felt every ounce of regret she had ever caused me. I ran through the empty streets, clutching my dress, my mind racing. Daniel had to know what happened. He needed to understand that Clara wasn't just jealous, she had tried to erase me from my own life. I called him, my fingers shaking. Daniel, it's me, I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. Joyce? Where are you? What's wrong? His panic shot through the phone. I could hear it in every word. Clara, she tried to kidnap me, I said quickly, giving just enough detail without panicking. I escaped, but you need to know, she can't be trusted. Not now, not ever. There was a pause. Then his voice, calm but urgent, stay where you are. I'm coming. Don't let her see you. I hid behind a corner, careful not to be seen, waiting for Daniel's car to arrive. My chest pounded, but determination overrode fear. Clara thought she had destroyed me, but I had survived. Now, with Daniel on my side, I could begin to reclaim my life, and set the stage for the revenge she would never see coming. The next moves had to be perfect. Daniel arrived within minutes, his eyes scanning the streets until they found me. Relief washed over me as I ran into his arms, safe for the first time in hours. Joyce, I can't believe he stopped, taking a deep breath. We'll fix this. Together. I nodded, my mind already racing ahead. This wasn't just about survival anymore. Clara had to pay for what she did, and the only way to do it was to expose her for who she really was. We returned to my apartment, safe behind locked doors. Over hot tea and trembling hands, we mapped out our strategy. First, gather evidence, messages, plans, and anything that showed Clara's intent to ruin my life. Second, make sure no one could mistake her lies for truth. Third, prepare a reveal that would leave her stunned, exposed, and unable to deny her actions. Daniel smiled at me. You know, you've always been clever. I shouldn't have been surprised by this. I laughed softly, though it was edged with bitterness. Clever enough to survive, and clever enough to take my life back, I said. The first step of revenge had begun. And Clara wouldn't see it coming. The next morning, I started gathering every scrap of evidence I could find. Clara thought she had covered her tracks, but arrogance was her weakness. She had left messages, made calls, and even bragged to friends, enough for me to build a complete picture of her plan. I photographed texts, recorded conversations where she bragged about taking my place, and even traced the men she had hired. Every detail was a thread I could pull to unravel her scheme. Daniel helped, using his connections to track suspicious activity and verify the men's identities. Together, we built a case that was undeniable. I felt a mix of fear and satisfaction. Fear because one wrong move could put me back in danger, satisfaction because every piece of evidence brought me closer to justice. Clara thought she was clever, but she hadn't counted on me being just as resourceful, and fueled by betrayal. By the evening, I had organized everything in a secure folder. Daniel looked at me and smiled. Joyce, this is perfect. You've outsmarted her at every turn. I nodded, determination blazing in my chest. It was time to prepare the next step, a reveal that Clara would never forget. With the evidence organized, I knew it was time to act. Clara needed to see that her actions had consequences, and the best way was a public reveal she could not escape. Daniel and I planned a small gathering, just under the guise of a bridal shower for me. Invitations went to close friends and family, including people Clara liked to impress. She couldn't resist showing up. I wore a calm smile, masking the storm of anticipation inside me. Every detail mattered, the timing, the people, and making sure Clara couldn't spot my intentions until it was too late. As expected, she arrived fashionably late, glancing around like a queen surveying her kingdom. She smiled at everyone, pretending to be supportive, but her eyes were sharp and calculating. I watched her, heart pounding with controlled excitement. Daniel stood beside me, giving a reassuring squeeze to my hand. "Tonight," I whispered under my breath, "you will see what happens when betrayal meets truth." Every camera on my phone was ready. Every friend was briefed. Every word I would speak was carefully chosen. Clara thought she was in control, but the moment of reckoning had finally come. The room buzzed with laughter and chatter as Clara mingled, unaware that she was walking straight into my trap. I stood near the center, holding the folder of evidence close. Daniel gave me a nod. It was time. "Everyone," I called, raising my voice just enough to draw attention. Glasses clinked, and heads turned toward me. Clara's smile faltered slightly, but she forced it back. "I want to share something important," I said calmly. "Something about trust, betrayal, and the truth." I opened the folder, projecting the texts and recordings onto my phone so everyone could see. Gasps filled the room. Clara's confident composure began to crack. She stammered, "Joyce, that's not." I held up my hand. "It is. You planned to take my life, my fiancé, and my wedding. You even hired people to kidnap me. Everything is here, and now everyone knows the truth." People whispered, eyes wide with shock. Clara's face turned red with rage and embarrassment. The friends she thought she could manipulate now stared at her in disbelief. Daniel squeezed my hand, pride shining in his eyes. I had survived. I had exposed her. And Clara finally understood she could not undo what she had done. Clara stood frozen, her eyes darting between the evidence on my phone and the shocked faces surrounding us. She had always been confident, always thinking she could get away with everything, but not tonight. "You'll regret this, Joyce," she spat, her voice trembling with anger. "I'll make you pay." I smiled calmly. "You already have," I said. "Everyone knows the truth now. There's no pretending, no lies, no games left." Her hands shook as she tried to grab my phone, but Daniel stepped forward. "Back off," he said firmly. Clara's rage collided with the reality of being powerless. I felt a wave of satisfaction as people whispered among themselves, realizing Clara had orchestrated my kidnapping. Friends who had once admired her now looked at her with disappointment. Even her closest allies began to distance themselves, unsure if they wanted to be associated with a traitor. Clara's world was crumbling. The wedding she had imagined for herself, the life she wanted to steal, was slipping away with every glance at the evidence. And in that moment, I realized revenge wasn't about cruelty. It was about justice, and tonight, I had given Clara exactly that. The days after the reveal were a whirlwind. Clara avoided friends and family, her usual charm replaced by shame. People who once praised her now whispered about her betrayal. I watched from a distance, feeling a mix of relief and empowerment. Daniel stayed close, offering support without smothering. Together, we repaired the small cracks left by Clara's schemes. Every text, call, and smile was a reminder that truth had a power no lie could match. Clara's attempts to apologize fell flat. Her pride made her words sound hollow. "I didn't mean it," she started, but everyone had already seen her true colors. Even Daniel's patience had limits, and he quietly reminded her that trust, once broken, couldn't be forced back. I focused on my wedding plans, making every detail perfect. Flowers, music, and guests now felt like a celebration of survival, of love that withstood the storm. At night, I traced the secret mark Daniel knew, smiling. Clara had tried to erase me, but I had survived, and I had thrived. My life, my love, my choices were mine, untouched by her jealousy. Revenge wasn't about anger anymore. It was about reclaiming joy, and I was finally free to do just that. The days before the wedding were filled with preparation, excitement, and a lingering shadow, Clara. Despite being exposed, she still tried subtle ways to unsettle me: texts, surprise appearances, even showing up at shops I visited. But I was no longer afraid. I had learned to anticipate her moves and stay 2 steps ahead. Daniel noticed the tension but trusted me completely. "She's powerless now," he said one evening as we reviewed the seating chart. "No matter what she does, it won't change how much I love you." I smiled, feeling warmth spread through me. His words reminded me that this wedding wasn't just about a dress or a ceremony. It was about reclaiming my happiness. I spent hours choosing details, making sure every arrangement reflected who I was, not Clara's shadow. From flowers to music, every choice became a small act of defiance, a statement that my life could not be stolen. At night, I sat by the window, thinking of the week that had nearly destroyed me. Fear had tried to dominate me, but anger had turned into strength. I was ready. The wedding would come, and Clara's attempts to overshadow my life would fail completely. I was Joyce Moore, and my story was far from over. The wedding day arrived, bright and beautiful, but my heart carried a quiet wariness. Clara had made it clear she wasn't done, and every laugh, every whisper from guests made me scan the crowd for her shadow. Daniel held my hand tightly as we walked into the hall, his calm energy grounding me. "She won't ruin this," he said softly. I nodded, trusting him, though the memories of the warehouse and her betrayal still lingered. Guests arrived, smiles and congratulations filling the room. Clara had been invited, of course, because our family insisted, hoping civility might tame her. She entered with a forced smile, glancing at me with the kind of hatred only a twin could harbor. I held my head high, ignoring the tension bubbling beneath the surface. My focus was Daniel, my love, my future. Nothing Clara could do would change that. As the ceremony began, I caught a glimpse of her whispering to someone in the back, her eyes sharp, plotting. I let a small smile cross my lips. She might have tried before, but now I was prepared. The wedding would go on. Clara would not win. And the revenge I had planned was still waiting to unfold. The ceremony flowed beautifully, music filling the hall and guests smiling at our vows. My heart soared as I looked at Daniel, knowing we had survived every storm. But I never let my guard down. Clara was still there, lurking in the crowd, her gaze fixed on me with unmistakable envy. Midway through the vows, she whispered something to one of our distant relatives, trying to plant doubt. I noticed immediately. Daniel glanced at me, sensing tension. I gave him a subtle nod, signaling that I had this. I leaned slightly toward the officiant and cleared my throat. "I need to say something," I said, projecting calm authority. All eyes turned to me. Clara's expression flickered, she hadn't expected me to react. With precision, I revealed her minor schemes, her whispered threats, her attempts to manipulate family opinions, and the messages I had collected. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Clara's face went pale as her plan unraveled in front of everyone. She tried to argue, to twist the story, but no one believed her. I had anticipated every move. Every lie fell apart, leaving her exposed. Daniel squeezed my hand, pride shining in his eyes. Clara had learned a hard lesson: betrayal never goes unnoticed. After the ceremony, whispers followed Clara wherever she went. Friends and relatives who had once admired her now kept their distance. Every smile she tried to force felt hollow, every word she spoke met with skepticism. The more she struggled to reclaim control, the more obvious her guilt became. I stayed calm, focusing on the joy around me. Daniel held my hand, and together we navigated the room, sharing smiles and laughter that Clara could never steal. Her attempts to overshadow my happiness only highlighted her failure. Through the evening, I noticed subtle changes. Relatives who had been unsure about Clara now looked at her with disappointment. Her allies avoided eye contact. She was shrinking under the weight of her own betrayal. I didn't gloat. My revenge wasn't about cruelty. It was about justice, showing everyone that deceit and envy carry consequences. By the time the reception ended, Clara had no allies left in the room. She slipped out quietly, her power stripped away. I watched her go, feeling a wave of satisfaction and freedom. I had survived her schemes, reclaimed my life, and made it clear that betrayal, even by someone who shares your face, would never go unpunished. With Clara's schemes exposed and her influence gone, life began to feel lighter. The wedding had been perfect, a celebration of love and survival, and Daniel and I finally had peace. But I knew my revenge wasn't finished. There were lessons Clara still needed to learn, and a life she had tried to steal that had to be fully reclaimed. I focused on strengthening my relationships and building trust with everyone Clara had tried to manipulate. Family gatherings became moments of genuine connection, and friends who had doubted me now respected my strength and courage. Even Clara's lingering attempts to interfere couldn't touch me. Every subtle threat, every whispered insult, fell flat. She had underestimated my intelligence, my determination, and the bond once shared with Daniel. I began taking control of the aspects of my life she had once tried to dominate, organizing our home, planning our future, and asserting myself in ways I had previously avoided. With every choice I made, every confident step forward, I felt my power grow. Clara's shadow faded, replaced by my own light. I realized that true revenge wasn't about hatred, it was about thriving where they hoped you'd fail. Weeks passed, and Clara's attempts to regain control had all failed. Her pride was battered, her reputation tarnished, and she had no one left to manipulate. But I wanted her downfall to be complete. Survival had been step one, now came poetic justice. I arranged a private gathering, inviting a few close friends and family who had witnessed her schemes firsthand. Clara, unaware of the trap, was eager to showcase her charm once again. As she spoke, I revealed every recorded message, every note, and every plan she had executed to try to ruin my life. Her lies collapsed under the weight of proof, leaving her speechless. Faces around her reflected shock, disbelief, and ultimately, disappointment. She tried to argue, her voice trembling with frustration, but no one defended her. Each failed attempt made her isolation more obvious. The power she had once wielded dissolved before her eyes. I watched silently, feeling the satisfaction of justice, not cruelty. Clara had learned that betrayal comes with consequences. When she finally left, shoulders slumped and pride shattered, I knew the lesson had been delivered. My life was mine again, stronger than ever, and the shadow she cast had disappeared completely. With Clara completely exposed, life finally began to feel peaceful. Daniel and I settled into our routine, the chaos of the past weeks slowly fading into memory. Every laugh, every quiet evening together reminded me that love and trust could withstand betrayal. I focused on building a life that was entirely mine. From decorating our home to planning trips, every choice was a statement of independence and strength. No shadow could touch me now. Clara tried once more to contact me, sending messages that ranged from desperate apologies to veiled threats. I didn't respond. Silence became my shield, and the power shifted entirely to me. Friends and family who had witnessed the chaos admired my resilience. They now knew who I truly was, a woman who had survived betrayal, escaped danger, and reclaimed her happiness with courage and intelligence. At night, I traced the secret mark Daniel knew, a quiet reminder of our bond and the strength it gave me. Clara had attempted to take everything, but she failed. My wedding, my love, my life, everything remained intact. The lesson was clear: betrayal can destroy others, but it cannot break you unless you allow it. I was free, and my happiness was untouchable. Weeks after the wedding, Clara's attempts to regain any sense of control had completely failed. Her reputation was ruined, her lies exposed, and no one wanted to be near her. Every friend she had counted on turned away, leaving her isolated and powerless. I didn't gloat, but I watched quietly as the consequences of her actions unfolded. The men she had hired to kidnap me were caught and questioned, and her family now knew the full extent of her betrayal. The truth spread faster than any apology could undo. Clara's arrogance had been her downfall. She thought she could erase me, but she underestimated my intelligence, patience, and determination. I had survived her schemes, and now she was the one learning what fear and regret felt like. One evening, she approached me, her head bowed, eyes filled with shame. "Joyce. I'm sorry," she muttered. I simply nodded, letting the silence speak louder than any words could. She had faced the ultimate reckoning, not just socially, but emotionally. I had reclaimed my life completely, and Clara had no choice but to accept the consequences of her actions. Justice had been delivered. With Clara's schemes completely dismantled, my life began to blossom in ways I had never imagined. Daniel and I focused on building our future, each day filled with laughter, love, and shared dreams. The shadow of betrayal had vanished, replaced by hope and empowerment. I took charge of our home, choosing colors, decorations, and spaces that reflected our personalities. Each small decision became a symbol of independence, a reminder that nothing could take my life from me again. Friends and family admired my strength, often commenting on how I had turned chaos into triumph. Every smile and congratulatory word reinforced the truth: I had survived and emerged stronger than ever. Clara, meanwhile, remained isolated. Attempts to reconnect failed, and every effort only reminded her of her mistakes. She had underestimated the power of resilience, and I had shown that true strength comes from survival, intelligence, and patience. Daniel squeezed my hand one evening as we watched the sunset, whispering, "You did it, Joyce. You survived everything and came out on top." I smiled, feeling a quiet sense of victory. Revenge wasn't about cruelty, it was about reclaiming life. And now, my happiness was untouchable. The final days after the wedding felt like a dream. Clara had vanished from our lives, her attempts to interfere completely ended. The air felt lighter, the world brighter, and every moment with Daniel was filled with genuine happiness. I reflected on the past, the betrayal, the kidnapping, and the weeks of fear and planning. Every challenge had shaped me into someone stronger, smarter, and more fearless. I realized revenge wasn't about hurting someone else, it was about reclaiming what they tried to steal and ensuring justice was served. Friends and family celebrated our love, but more importantly, they celebrated my strength. Daniel never left my side, offering unwavering support, reminding me that I had survived and thrived. Clara remained powerless, a shadow of the woman who had once tried to take everything from me. Her consequences were final, her lessons learned too late. As I stood beside Daniel, the secret mark near my belly reminded me of everything we had endured together, the trust, the love, and the victory. I smiled, finally free of fear, free of betrayal, and free to live the life I deserved. Joyce Moore had survived the ultimate test, and now, nothing could touch my happiness. The future was ours, bright, secure, and unstoppable. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more powerful narratives, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what part hit you the hardest. Thanks for watching.